Okay, the other big story that is taking place at this moment, naval warship INS Kochi, the stealth-guided missile destroyer, will be commissioned today by Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar. These are pictures that we are getting in from the Mumbai Naval Dockyard. INS Kochi is the second ship of the Kolkata class Project 15A guided missile destroyers, and it adds to India's Navy might. We have Jugal Purohit joining us on the phone line with all the latest. Morning, Jugal. We saw a comprehensive report that you actually filed, giving us a sneak peek into the INS Kochi. Today it is being commissioned. How does this INS Kochi ship actually add on to the military might?
Well, you see, Sanket, in terms of its military might itself, the INS Kochi, or Kochi for now, she will be INS Kochi once the commissioning completes, the ceremony completes itself. And the INS Kochi is essentially a ship which is much more powerful than any other naval warship that you see, second only to an aircraft carrier. So that gives you an idea about just how potent, how big, how powerful this ship is. But if we are to look at the ship's own capabilities right now, she is minus helicopters which are dedicated for the ship. She is without long-range surface-to-air missiles which are self-defense mechanisms meant to tackle incoming aerial threats. She's also without an active towed array sonar which is meant to detect submarines. So for now, the Kochi is not at its complete self in terms of its defense and its power projection capabilities concerned. Nevertheless, it is still a very, very potent platform to be inducted. It will add to the number, it will add to the strength, the capability. And if you see, the Navy is no longer just about war fighting. Wars seldom take place. But what is important is that the Navy and the country's naval might should be adequate to be able to protect its commerce. Remember, 90% of India's trade takes place through the sea. And it is in that theater that you need powerful assets to ensure that the enemy is deterred into inaction. So the role is not so much only about fighting, but also towards ensuring that there is no fight that takes place. That's another area where the Kochi will be of immense help. Also, Sanket, if you saw, just recently when the invasion or the war against Yemen began, we saw naval platforms could enter the war-torn area, the waters of Yemen, go there in the thick of military action taking place, aerial bombardment, fighting on the ground, and yet go and extricate Indian citizens as well as those from the neighboring countries, friendly countries of India. Such scenarios are only possible when you have assets like Kochi, powerful military assets which can stand there for your citizens to evacuate and bring them home to safety. So this is a wide gamut of role, and if you see the Indian Navy's typical area of operation, Sanket, is from the Strait of Hormuz, which is next to Iran, to the Strait of Malacca, which is very, very close to the waters of Southeast Asia. So if you are going to see, this is a huge theater where there is a competing interest between Chinese Navy coming in now, the Pakistan Navy with its submarine capabilities, Indian Navy, which is trying to be a net provider of security and be an umbrella organization of sorts for all the smaller, friendlier countries. INS Kochi's addition definitely will take the Navy a step ahead. But as I said, it still is incomplete, and in its incompleteness, perhaps there is a lesson for our policymakers, for the Navy, for the Defence Ministry, that when you are designing a ship which is as huge as the INS Kochi is, procurement processes, development processes of arms and ammunition and sensors need to keep pace with the development of the ship. It's taken 10 long years, Sanket, mind you, for the Kochi to be made. It's one hell of a long program that the Kochi has undergone. 10 years is almost it's a decade that the ship has taken to be built. It's a timeline which is unacceptable to the Indian Navy, which is in need of about 150 odd ships. It also has several old ships which it will decommission as ships like Kochi enter the service. So while there are problems with acquisition, there are problems with shipbuilding in India, there are problems in keeping pace with the ship's development and getting weapons ready for it. So all of this is of course there, and these issues will continue to haunt the Navy and its program. But the fact is that today is a special day because the nation gets a dedicated destroyer warship, second, as I said, only to an aircraft carrier in its power, in its projection capability, in its size and reach. So no doubt it will add to the Navy's might, and in doing so, it will add to the country's own interests.
Okay, Jugal, do stay on with us, and in just a short moment from now, we'll play out that exclusive report also which you filed, which we've been playing, getting our viewers a sneak peek into what INS Kochi can do. The pictures that you see on the left-hand side of your screen are of Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar, who's there at the commissioning event at the Mumbai Naval Dockyard. That commissioning will actually take place. Manohar Parrikar will be speaking in just a short moment from now. Let's now go across to Shiv Arur, India Today's Shiv Arur, who joins us on the phone line. Morning, Shiv. You know, one point that Jugal was mentioning just a short while ago is that 10 years of wait is criminal delay. But the fact that it is being commissioned now is good news, because we are adding to the Navy's military might.
Good morning, Sanket. Yes, definitely. The wait has been a long one, but it's also because this ship is almost entirely indigenous. It's a completely local effort. So in that sense, a huge learning experience for India's shipbuilders. Let's make no mistake, Sanket, this is by far the most complex family of ships that India has ever built. It puts India completely on par with very experienced shipbuilding nations like France, the UK, and the United States for this class of ships. It's incredible just what a complicated ship this is. Right down from the special graded steel required for such ships, to many of the weapons on board, to some of the sensors, to a large part of the very complex construction undertaken for this kind of vessels. It is an indigenous effort, and in that sense, the timelines that have been taken, even though they have been unacceptable, are lessons learned and will be, applied in the future ships. Even the first class of this particular ship, which was called the INS Kolkata, which was commissioned last year, today's commissioning has actually happened on time. It happened at an earlier date than was expected compared to the last delays. So in that sense, it's definitely very good news. And the fact that the Indian Navy has been so impressed with this class of ships that they've actually looked at getting many more of this kind, an improved version of this particular ship, is basically just a manifestation of the faith that the Indian Navy has. And one last point is very important. Remember that India currently imports almost all of its weaponry from abroad, Sanket. But the Navy does not have the luxury to do that with ships, simply because of the lead time required to build enormous warships and complicated vessels of this class. So the Navy doesn't have a choice but to depend on indigenous technology. And if the indigenous technology is as good as ships like the Kochi, then it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Shiv, for the common viewer, the addition of something like an INS Kochi, how does this improve, say, naval monitoring or Coast Guard security? How will the Navy actually provide that sort of help and assistance should there be an untoward incident?
Well, for one thing, the INS Kochi, each ship, it's a very good question, Sanket. Given the enormous area of responsibility in the Indian Ocean and the coastal responsibility.
Okay, Shiv, I'm going to stop you there. We will cut across live to Mumbai, where the proceedings of the commissioning have just begun.
Rashtriya salute! Salute! Just
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Raksha Mantri will now address the gathering.
Admiral R.K. Dhruvan, Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Chima, Flag Officer Commanding in Chief Western Naval Command, Vice Admiral G.S. Fabi, Controller Warship Production and Acquisition, Rear Admiral R.K. Shawat, Chairman and Managing Director, Mazgaon Docks, Commanding Officer Kochi and his crew, distinguished guests, members of media, ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored to be present here on the occasion of commissioning of INS Kochi, a red letter day for Navy and Mazgaon Dock and Shipbuilders Limited. The commissioning of Kochi, the second ship of Kolkata class, steel destroyer designed by Indian Navy, built by MDL, marks yet another milestone in the warship building saga and bears testimony to the technological strides made in our house, competence and self-reliance in design and warship building capacity. Late of few days, last couple of months and maybe for the past 1 year, there has been renewed enthusiasm amongst the defense production units, DPSUs and private sector, and we have been consistently attempting to indigenize and speed up timely deliveries. So I am quite pleased that though there is a delay initially, the current ship is sailing out, being commissioned as per the promise and as per the time schedule. I hope the next one also will be out by the current financial year. There is a program of submarines, and while I congratulate Navy MDL for the indigenous design capabilities of different kinds, we still, while very good at float, are still I think lacking the basic requirement of the firepower and other move and fight component of it. I think unless we reach that competence level, we will not be in position to go for the Make in India. More encouragement to the private sector is also required, particularly the medium and small enterprise. I can tell you from my own experience that while big industry delivers the outcome, innovations normally come from the small people who don't have much of overheads and don't have much of resources. So it is up to you to ensure that they are provided the resources, and a development model, partnership model is what is required. I wish to reiterate that the government is seized of the nation's defense requirement and requisite financial support for armed forces and defense industry. We will make available with includes modernization development plans of Navy. Towards this, government shall always remain committed, and this commitment will also include a very transparent and effective use of the funds provided. On the momentous occasion, I congratulate Chairman and MDL, particularly all workers of Mazgaon Dock for their noteworthy achievement in steering the production, the Director General Naval Design and his team for this work. I can assure you one thing, you go on producing, we can I think place orders for more, and you can also go on exporting. Export should be also thought of as a continuous part of the expanding. I wish the commanding officers and sailors of the magnificent INS Kochi, its finish is as good as any foreign ship, which I think is a tremendous improvement over last few years. Every success in performing their onerous duties on the fine warship as sentinels of our seas. Let us take a oath that we will develop a real blue ocean navy, a navy which can dominate the Indian Ocean region, and while dominating it, be considered friendly by the neighbors. We have already done during my tenure itself 2 acts like water supply to Maldives and rescue of our nationals along with 22 other countries' nationals from Yemen without a single damage to us. I wish you again to achieve this target of Blue Water Navy as early as possible. We are heading towards it, and I am very confident in the direction of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. We will definitely achieve it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Raksha Mantri will now unveil the ship's name. There shines the name of the ship, and we know we have all your good wishes as we sail the high seas, fulfilling the purpose of our very existence.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Raksha Mantri will now proceed for a walk around of the ship.
All right, so Navy's deadliest destroyer, the Tough Tusker, as it is called, has now been commissioned. The Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar, in his speech at the Naval Dockyard in Mumbai, threw open the Navy's deadliest destroyer to the country. Let's quickly go across to Shiv Arur, who's back on the phone line. Shiv, just before we cut across live to this event, you were actually telling us about how for the common man this Navy's deadliest destroyer, the INS Kochi, is going to carry a lot of significance.
Absolutely, Sanket. It's impossible to overstate the importance of each new warship that gets added to service. And for a ship with the capabilities that the INS Kochi and the ship right before it of its class called the INS Kolkata, which was inducted last year, actually bring in terms of capability is absolutely enormous. In fact, they're so complicated that the Indian Navy is even now still discovering what these ships can actually do. Of course, they're armed to the teeth. They're called destroyers for a reason, because they bring to bear almost every conceivable kind of naval weapon, including surface-to-air missiles, anti-submarine rockets, torpedoes and such. So they're built to basically destroy targets beneath the surface, on the surface, as well as in the air. Secondly, this particular ship is a stealth destroyer. It's been constructed in such a way that its radar signature is as low as possible, which doesn't mean it's invisible, but from a distance, it is as sleek and stealthy as possible. Third, most important point, it's built for long endurance. Given one of the things that the Indian Navy has always demanded from its warships, Sanket, is the ability to stay out at sea for long periods. And the INS Kochi, like the INS Kolkata before it, are ships that have been designed from the inside out as long endurance platforms that can remain out at sea, can be refueled at sea, like many of the Indian Navy's warships already, with the ability to keep enough stores on board for the crew to undertake, long endurance missions, because a ship like this will be put out for patrol. It is built extremely powerfully to be able to reach sites quite fast. For a ship its size, Sanket, 7,500 tons of sheer brute force, this is an unusually swift ship that can move quite fast through the water. So the ability for it to be deployed at short notice, in terms of in the event of any kind of situation, is actually quite surprising. So in that sense, compared with ships of comparable size in the world, the INS Kochi is actually quite a fast ship in the water. Now, the important point about deployments is this ship will be part of the Western Fleet, that is the Arabian Sea, the Southern Indian Ocean, and therefore it joins an already very large and formidable fleet of vessels that the Indian Navy has. Jugal was telling us before this that the Indian Navy needs many, many more ships to actually, be able to provide that, proper coverage in terms of warships all across the Indian Ocean region. But every single ship that gets added to the fleet is definitely a very, very important addition, and it's something that the Navy simply will not underestimate. Certainly it needs more ships, certainly needs ships at a faster rate, but the INS Kochi, with the capabilities it brings, the number of things it can actually do at the same time, means that the Indian Navy will be a very, very satisfied armed force today.
Absolutely. Shiv, do stay on with us. Let's tell our viewers that at this present moment, on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see these pictures. The Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar is presently taking a tour of INS Kochi. Let's quickly take a short question from Jugal Purohit before we head into a short break. Jugal, if you can hear me, your news report that you filed yesterday, it talks about the exclusivity of this warship is the fact that it is a made-in-India design, built and systems on board and weapons, areas where India traditionally has not much to speak of. So it's a matter of great pride, isn't it?
There's little doubt, Sanket. As you rightly pointed out, the design is that of India, the build is that of India. Most of the weapons, which was, as you said, an area where we had to rely on imports, which was a cause of delay for most ships. In this particular ship, the total content of in-house design, in-house built and in-house equipment is about 60%. And this is at a time when India is tagged as the world's largest arms importer. So no doubt it's an impressive effort, Sanket. But as I said, there are some loopholes, there are some issues which the Navy could have well planned out. Nevertheless, as I said, and as she was saying, addition of a ship to the Navy, to the kind of requirements we have, is welcome. And this particular ship, with all its network-centric capabilities, its tie-up with the satellite of the Navy, Rukmini, it is, in a sense, a very, very big platform that the Navy has got. And there's no doubt that it will go a long way and help in a great deal in protecting and furthering India's interests at sea.
Okay. Jugal, many thanks for joining us at this moment, and also Shiv Arur. So the INS Kochi has now been commissioned into the fleet of the Indian Navy.